if anyone is listening. I don't think anybody's here yet, but I'm just checking a few things. I don't want to send you a message. Thank you. I was pretty sure I had this. Can I not? Okay, I'm not sure how to send. Okay, I have 3 people watching. Bonsoir. I'm starting a little bit early. I'm just trying to get some music going in the background. I don't know why it's being difficult. There we go. If y'all know me, then y'all know I'm not the most technologically. Oh, all 3 of you are gone. I had 3 eyeballs. It was probably some Twitch people who went kiseksa and then ran away. But I am technically 1 minute from live, so here's hoping that it works. Au nom du Père et Fils et Saint-Esprit, ainsi soit-il. Monsieur Lapin. Qui te préfère, Monsieur Lapin? Now, see Monsieur Lapin in Cajun fairy tales, and Creole fairy tales more so. He's got a history, him. I don't know how many of you have ever owned rabbits or especially gone chasing rabbits out in the grass, but they sneaky. And you might be familiar with the stories of Brer Rabbit from the Charlene Harris collection of Uncle Remus stories. But the character of Monsieur Lapin in Creole culture and in French Creole culture, and then in the way that everything kind of runs together down here in South Louisiana, the way that he became Compair Lapin. Et Compair Lapin, see, he had a buddy, and that was Monsieur Bouki, Compair Bouki. And he had a couple of other friends. He had Compair l'Ours, who's a bear. Now, Compair Bouki, I've seen a couple of different places. If you go back to the original African context for a lot of these stories, he was a hyena. Now, we got a lot of weird stuff down here on the bayous, but one thing we don't have is hyenas. We're going to count our lucky stars. So, Compair Lapin, he gets himself into some trouble. And he likes to play some tricks on his friends, especially him and Compair Bouki. Me, they always after each other. But we're gonna see our last story. He's gonna save himself. You're gonna see a little different side of Compair Lapin. But the first story I'm gonna tell you is of Compair Lapin et Compair Bouki and that butter he's got in that tub back there. Y'all see that? I got a friend, Miss Barbara. She lives in New Orleans. And I'm 40. I'm old, y'all. Every time I see this woman, she tells a story about when I was a little petite fille, when I was a little girl. And I stuck my finger in her butter dish and said, "You know, Miss Barbara, I just love butter." Well, I guess I got a little bit of Lapin in me. So I'm going to tell you about Monsieur Lapin and his butter. See, once, a long time ago, it was Compair Bouquet, Compair l'Ours, and Compair Lapin were hanging out. And Compair l'Ours, the bear, he had called his friends over to help him with a project. And they were over there and they were going to be cracking some corn and, making the veillée, just doing some chores around the house. But Monsieur Lapin, he stood up, he says, "Mais, y'all hear that?" And Compair Bouquet and Compair l'Ours, they said, "Mais no, I don't hear nothing." He says, "Oh, well, I got these big old rabbit ears." Now, he's a mark, so they're not that big. But he says, "I think I just had me a godchild. I got to go run over and see what's going on. A godchild's getting christened." So he took off across the field. He was gone for a little while. He comes back, and Monsieur Bouquet says, "Oh, what they named the baby?" He says, "A little bit." They thought that was a weird last name for a baby, a weird name for a baby. So they got back to their chores, and a few hours later, Lapin sits up again. He says, "Whew, y'all hear that?" They said, "Mais non, Lapin, what you heard? Qu'est-ce que tu préfères?" He says, "Me, I just heard from across the field. I think I had another godchild born." And he took off. And when he came back, Bouquet says, "Me, what they named this baby?" He said, "About half." And Compair l'Ours, the bear, he thought that sounded a little strange. But, people name their kids all kinds of stuff these days. So then they cracked a few more pieces of corn for the house. And Lapin sat up again. And he says, "Huh, y'all hear that?" They said, "No, Lapin, we don't hear that." He said, "Well, it sounds like I got another godchild born." They said, "Alors pas." He says, "No, I hear it. I'll be right back." And so Lapin took off across the field. And he came back a little while later. And they said, "Well, what'd y'all name this baby?" And he said, "Tout fini." Say, "Tout fini." That's the strangest name. And Compair Lapin, he just laughed and he sat down and he helped them finish what little bit there was left to do after he took off all day. And after they were done, Compair l'Ours thanked his friends for coming help him. And he walked into his house and he about lost his mind because he looked at a barrel of butter and it was all gone. And what was around the bottom? But some little rabbit tracks from Compair Lapin. And that was when he realized what that wasn't the name of his godchildren. He had eaten a little bit of the butter, about half of the butter. And when he finished it, c'est comme tout fini. He had finished all of Compair l'Ours's butter. And Compair l'Ours was mad enough to spit. But they always making, we call that in Cajun French, if anybody who's listening, we call that the making the diable. They always making the diable to each other. Now, before I start another story, I'm going to talk about this picture a little bit. Now, some of y'all might see there's an image underneath. So what I did last night, I made the veillée late. I was watching a new movie. And I drew this because I don't know about y'all, but I got to work at my drawings. I don't just sit down and draw something right away. Some people can do that. They're fabulous. Those people who can draw with a Sharpie, Lord, it's amazing what they can do. Me, I got to erase a lot, and I don't want to see y'all. Y'all don't want to sit around watching me erase all the time. Y'all came here to hear the stories, right? So I'm going to tell y'all another one, because a few days later, after the butter, well, Compair Lapin, see, he wanted to make it up to his friend, or at least that's what he told his friend. And so him and Compair Bouquet and Le Rat de Bois, which is a possum. They were all in the field, and they decided that they was going to clear a field and they was going to make a garden together. And they said, well, we know not everybody's going to work the same. So how are we going to divide up the produce? And Compair Lapin, he stood up, he says, well, you know what? He said, we're going to plant. And I tell you what, you can keep what's on the top. I'm going to keep what's on the bottom. They said, all right. And then Compair Lapin, he decided to plant some peanuts. So when time came to harvest, well, he got some peanuts. And Compair l'ours and Compair Bouquet and the Rat de Bois, mais all they got was the tops. That was just the green. So he said, Moody, next time we getting the tops, you getting the bottoms. He said, well, all right. So then they planted some cabbage. So when time came to harvest, well, Compair Lapin, he had some big, beautiful heads of cabbage. And all the other ones got was those little bitty roots from the bottom of a cabbage plant. He said, Moody. I don't know if it's actually a curse word in Cajun French. If there's any actual children who speak French, sometimes you might have to cover your ears. Well, said next time they said, well, I'm going to get what's on the bottom. So they planted potatoes, and Lapin got it again. And they said, oh, well, next time we're going to get what's on the top. And so they planted some beautiful tomatoes, and Compair Lapin got all the beautiful tomatoes, and all they got was the roots. So they about had it. They could not outsmart this rabbit. So they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make a lady out of that bad pooty gumbo mud and some tar all mixed up. And so Le Roi de Bois, the possum, and Compair l'ours, the bear, they decided to they mixed it up. They made it look like a pretty little rabbit lady. And they left her in the middle of the road. And Compair Lapin, he came over to check on the garden. And he saw this pretty little rabbit lady standing in the road. He says, bonjour, madame. Ça va? And she didn't answer. He said, well, madam. He says, you know, there's no need to be rude. And she still didn't answer. He said, me, if you're not going to talk to me, at least could you get out my way? You're standing in the middle of the road. And when she didn't move and she didn't talk, he decided she was being rude. So he says, I'm just going to go where I'm wanted. Shove her aside. Well, then his arm got stuck. And he said, pardon, madame, mademoiselle, would you mind getting out of my way? I'm trying to get past. And of course, she didn't move. She was made out of boupuri and tar. And so he said, madame, mademoiselle, you get out my way, or I'm going to have to slap you. So he pulled his head back. He pulled his hand back, and he made to slap her. He tried to slap the woman out of the way again, and his hand got stuck. And he says, me, madam, why are you holding on to me? Let me go, let me go, let me go. He said, I'm going to kick you. I'm going to kick you with my hind legs, because you know it's a rabbit. He's got those strong hind legs. And the little lady made out of boupuri wouldn't let him go, of course. So he tried to kick her with one foot. He got stuck. He tried to kick her with the other foot. He got stuck again. And then he hears chuckling from off on the side of the ditch. And who comes out but his friends? And they laugh and they laugh and they laughing at Mr. Lapin. Qui sta préfère, vieux? What you doing? You stuck? He said, Moody. He says, this is what you get for messing with our garden. And so they pick him up, wrapped him all up in all that boupuri and that tar. And they took him. They said, you know what we're going to do? I think we're going to throw him in the fire. He said, oh, no, don't. Says, you can throw me in the fire, but you know what I don't want you to do? Just please don't throw me in that blackberry patch. What you mean? Oh, those stickers, the way they hurt your arms and your legs. Please, please, you can set me on fire. You can throw me to the dogs. You can pitch me in the intercoastal canal, but please, please, please don't throw me in that blackberry patch. Whoo, those briars, they get stuck in my fur, something bad. Please, please. And Compair and Le Roi de Bois, they looked at each other and they'd had it with Lapin. So they picked him up. Un, deux, trois, and they chucked him in the middle of the blackberry patch. And they hear, oh, ah, pouillard, ah. And then wouldn't you know it, they hear Compair Lapin laughing and laughing from the middle of the blackberry patch. May where y'all think my mama raised me? And his friends was so aggravated and so just done with Compair Lapin, they threw up their hands, cursed him to his own fate, and figured they would just let God deal with Compair Lapin. Because anyone who could be raised in a blackberry patch, that was just too tough for them. I'm going to tell you a story. I'm trying to add the links to the French versions of these stories to the chat, but as I'm always apologizing for, I'm not exactly the best person at technology in general, and this whatever little thingy I'm using is not letting me add stuff. But if I can save this to YouTube, most of these stories are available in the original Creole French. And I don't know how many big people or little people are listening. I hope some little people are listening. I know y'all don't want to hear all the big histories and stuff, but there's some amazing recordings of the original French of Compair Bouquet, Compair l'Ours, Compair Lapin. We might get into Monsieur Hibou. I'll tell y'all a quick story about Madame Carancro. Now, Carancro is one of those big vultures that you see on the side of the road when somebody hasn't had the best day. But there are links through the Louisiana Folkways website and the just about any. I think UL has a pretty good database of original French language fairy tales. I'm hoping to get my mama to record some for me because she still speaks French and I'm learning. But all I know how to do is tell my kids to ferme la porte glaciaire, and my little one's always, où est le lunette? Where are your glasses? Not my little one, my middle one. So if y'all want to hear these stories told from the mouths of people that have them memorized and aren't very nervous because they're going to be on the internet, then I would recommend you look up and just Google Lapin, Lapin. You can look up Compair Lapin. And there are stories because Monsieur Lapin, he was a trickster all the way back to the original Haitian Creole. And I want to say it goes back to the African, I can't remember the tribe off the top of my head, and I don't have my notes in front of me. I know Bouquet is a hyena in some stories and a donkey in another, because last time I checked, we don't have no hyenas. So I'm sure if we did, we'd figure out how to cook them. But let me tell y'all the story about this here little rabbit and Madame Carancro. Because sometimes it's not always your fault. So, Compair Lapin, he didn't always live in the briar patch. There was a little time where he lived in the bottom of a big old tree with a big rotted out hole at the bottom. And up in the tip tops of that tree, there lived Madame Carancro with her big old black head full of soft, soft feathers. and she was hungry and she was kind of lazy. She didn't want to go too far to find her dinner. She saw Lapin living down at the bottom of the tree, and she's plodded away to get her big old talons in his little soft rabbit body. And so one day she saw, after his morning scamper, he went back down in his hole. And she took in her big old claws, she picked up a whole bunch of moss and some bricks from a nearby house that had fallen down. And she plugged up the hole where Compair Lapin got into his house. And he said, Madame Carancro, let me out, let me out. And she says, no, you're going to stay in there until you're too weak to fight. And then I'm going to gobble you up. Oh, no, thought Compair Lapin. But even if he wasn't the bad guy in this situation, he was always clever. So he waited and he waited and he stayed very, very quiet. And while he was sitting there waiting, very, very quiet, he picked up a couple of sticks that had fallen in when Madame Carancro plugged up the hole, and some of that nice, soft, dry moss. And he rubbed it just a little. And he waited and he waited, and he could hear Madame Carancro way up in the tree getting impatient and more hungry. Until finally, she thought he was dead. And she came down and she started pulling the bricks away. And well, Compair Lapin, he rubbed that stick fast, and it made a fire in all that dry moss. And he hopped out on the back of Madame Carancro and he booted her in the croupion and he knocked her into that hole, and the fire got all over her big old head full of feathers. And he ran away laughing and laughing and laughing. And that's why the Carancro don't have no feathers on her head, and why she never eats the bones of a rabbit. Now I got one more Lapin story. We kind of on a, let's say, a redemption arc with our little bunny rabbit friend over here. Because this last story, this is what a young man named Jean Malin. Now, Jean Malin, for reasons that we don't really need to get into, he found himself without a place to live when he was a little boy. He had become an orphan. And he was sitting on the side of the road one day and pleurait, braille. He cried and he cried because he had nowhere to go. Well, a woman on a fine horse saw him. She said, "Qu'est-ce que tu préfères? What's wrong with you, little boy?" He says, "Madam, I don't have nowhere to go and nowhere to live." Well, that good woman, she had a big house and no one to really take care of for herself. She was all alone. She was unmarried. And so she took him in. And he came into her house and he was a servant. He would wait on her table, and she made sure he was learning how to read and write and getting his numbers and his education so he could improve himself in the world. And before too long, he came to love her like a mother because she was very, very good to him. But one thing he didn't like was when this man started coming around courting his mistress. And that man's name was Monsieur Taureau. Now, Monsieur Taureau, Jean Malin just didn't like him. He wasn't sure what it was, but something about that man just wasn't right. And so he followed him one night after he left Madame's house. And he followed him out to the field, out back of where the big house was. And he saw the man say, "Ma jambe, job, j'ai joué." And he turned into a big white bull. And Jean Malin was in shock. That big old man had turned into a big old bull and spent the day grazing in the field. Well, the next day he didn't know what to do. He went to his mistress and he said, Madame, I got to tell you something, but you're not going to like it. She says, Mais Jean, what's wrong? He says, "Your beau, Monsieur Taureau, he's not a man, madame. He's a bull who lives in the field behind your house." She says, "Oh, Jean, don't you make up these lies." And he says, "No, madame, it's true. I can prove it." She said, "I tell you what, when he comes tonight, you see what you can prove. But if you're telling me a lie, I'm turning you out and I'm never looking back. You hear me?" And he nodded, "Yes, madame, oui, madame." And so that night, while Monsieur Taureau came, he was all dressed in his big, fancy white suit with his fancy white cuffs and his fancy white shoes. And when he sat at the table, Jean said the words that would turn him into a bull, and boom! All of a sudden, the table was turned over, the dishes were everywhere, and Madame screamed because in the middle of her dining room wasn't her pretty boyfriend, but a big white bull. And Monsieur Taureau threw the table to the side and broke all the dishes as he ran out to the field. So, of course, Madame was grateful to Jean Malin, but he was too clever a little boy to think that that was the end of it, because he knew that when you got somebody mad who had gris-gris like that, you're going to have big trouble soon. So he went out and he looked for Compair Lapin, who everyone knew had the best gris-gris. And Compair Lapin, he told Jean Malin, he said, "Look, tomorrow's Friday. Early tomorrow morning, just before the sun comes up, you go and you find yourself 3 owl eggs deep in the woods. And then when you come bring them to me, and I'm going to put my gris-gris on them, and they'll see you right." So the next morning, early, when the owl was still out hunting, Jean Malin went to the nest. He got 3 owl eggs, and he brought them to Compair Lapin. And Compair Lapin said his words, and the gris-gris went into the eggs. And he told Jean Malin what to do. At noon, in the middle of the day, Jean Malin went out to the field, and Monsieur Taureau, who was now a big old white bull, saw him, and he snorted and he bucked when he saw that little boy who had done him wrong. And he charged at Jean Malin, and Jean ran up the tree, because I would want to be up a tree if a big old white bull was chasing me. And the bull got to the bottom of the tree, and he started hollering and hooting. He started bucking his horns into the tree. And when he realized that wouldn't work, he said the words, and he turned himself into a man, and he was holding an axe, and he started chopping down the tree. Well, Jean Malin took his first egg, and he chucked it down, and it hit the bull's arm holding the axe. It hit the man's arm that was holding the axe. And it fell off. The arm fell right off. No blood or nothing. The arm just fell off. So then, that didn't stop him. He put the axe in his other hand and started chopping the tree down. And so Jean dropped the second owl egg. Second arm fell off. Now you think that would stop him. But no. Monsieur Taureau was so mad, he picked up the axe in his teeth. He started trying to chop down the tree with his teeth. And Jean Malin dropped the last egg right on his neck. His head fell off. So Jean Malin said the words that would turn him back into a bull. And pow! All the pieces came back together. And the white bull looked up at the little boy, and pew, he took off for the levee, because if somebody had gris-gris like that, he did not want to be on their bad side, and he never darkened the doorway of either Jean Malin or his mistress ever again. Tout fini. Now, I know my version's a little bit different. Every raconteuse, every raconteur puts a little bit of a different spin on the stories. And I'm going to probably keep working on this little rabbit so we can see we got the briar patch, we got our butter, and we got our blue eggs. And if any of y'all want to see how this turns out, y'all can follow me on Instagram at Lexi Bro. You can go to my Facebook page. If you look up Alexis Bro, there's only 3 of us, and the other 2 are guys. I'm not really sure what y'all are seeing on that end as far as this restream thing that I'm using. But I'll be back here in about 30 minutes doing another one. I was going to do the singing bones, but when I tried out the story on my little girl, she said it was too much. So we might be having to improv a little bit from the chosen presentation. And if you were looking for something a little more instructional, if you've seen some of my live streams before, not that I've done that many, but if you're looking for something a little more instructional, I will be doing a regular art lesson at about 8 o'clock. We're going to be going live 3 times tonight. This is the first session. And if y'all want to go over to my website, it's fablepainter.com. Again, I thought I'd be able to add links, but moi je connais pas. I'm not sure how to make this work. But if y'all have any stories y'all want to see, if there are any little kids who are watching, which was kind of the intent of this, because my Christmas live stream, I had so many little ones that seemed, their mamas all said that watching me draw was fascinating. If y'all have any stories y'all want to hear, I'd like to tell more traditional stories, so maybe just give me some direction. Go ahead and shoot me an email at alexis@fablepainter.com. Or if you messaging is easy, that's also a way to go. And if you liked what you saw, go ahead and find a way to let me know, however that is. And I'm hoping to do this every Friday night, do a little veillée with y'all. And when this is finished, I'm going to be reopening my online store probably in about a month. And I will probably have both the finished original of this, because, you know, it's going to need a little color, as well as prints, because let's be honest, folks, who knows when the world's going to get back to normal. So I've got to get something going. But merci for coming by. I'm going to try and get the chat working for the next session. And I'll be right back here in about 30 minutes. Y'all have a nice evening. Bonne nuit.